Hello and welcome to Open School of Business. Today I am excited to introduce you to Anvitha Prasad. She's a social entrepreneur and she's studying international business and marketing at GW. Hi Anvitha, please introduce us to your social venture called Circle of Giving and please describe how you started and how you started being interested in entrepreneurship in general.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me, Anar. This is great. I love talking about Circle of Giving. I can talk about it all day, but I'll try to keep it short for now. As Anar said, I'm a student at GW. I have a venture called Circle of Giving. So our mission is to promote economic independence for underserved Indigenous and local artisans. We're currently working with Chanpark artisans in South India in a state called Karnataka. Chanapatna artisans, a little bit about the craft itself. I have a huge personal and cultural connection to it. My parents and my grandparents and my entire family is from that state and have played with their toys and knickknacks and worn their jewelry, and even growing up here, so have I. So what's been happening is that their art form has been dying out because the younger generations are moving away to the cities for more profitable jobs, mass competition with cheap imitations. And also recently the pandemic has really negatively affected them. So what Circle of Giving does is we buy their craft from a local distributor in Chanapatna. It's also a village, Chanapatna, that's why it's called Chanapatna Artisans. I should clarify that. There have been a lot of questions about that. So a local distributor who works with the artisans, we buy it, we mark up the price, sell it in the United States, and give a portion of the proceeds back to their community. So in the past, we've given a portion of the proceeds towards a hospital. They had a program to fund 100 free surgeries, and we paid for one of those free surgeries. And then another time it went towards funding a school bus, part of the proceeds. And I think another question you asked was how I got started with this as well.
Yes, I would like to know a bit of a history because you were telling me previously about your childhood connection to that place and how the whole idea started from there.
Yeah, of course. So it started a while back when I was 13. We go to Bangalore, which is the nearest city to Chanpark because my family's there, and we go on family vacations. And my parents decided to take me, my sister and I, to the actual village of Chanapatna because we just loved their craft a lot. So we wanted to see where it came from. And that was a life-changing experience because one, we got to see that artisans actually work and their process, and they were so proud of their work. But at the same time, they were so humble about it too. And that's sort of like it's sort of opposites, right? But it was just a very enlightening experience. I think growing up in this country, one of the things that I've noticed is, especially if we talk about artisans or just people in general, like especially if they're Black or brown, there's always a pity component to it. But here, like that was like the complete opposite. And I was kind of ashamed that I've been brought up in an environment like that, in a society like that in this country. And that's sort of a change that I wanted to implement through Circle of Giving as well. I remember they were making this red bracelet, and I still have it with me. It's my lucky bracelet. And he put red because I said I loved red. And he gave it to me and he put it in my hand. And my mom said, you should tip them because that's what's generally done when someone does a service for you. And I tried to give them a tip, but he just put it in my hand and closed my hand and said, no, this is just for you. Just remember what happened here today and remember this craft. And I think that for me was definitely life-changing. It altered that pity perception that I've grown up with in this country. And I've unfortunately grown up in this country just with everything that the media says and just the attitudes in general. And it was preserving a dignity that was really important. And that's what is really represented to everything I try to sell and everything I try to do. So ever since then in high school, it's been sort of on and off. It was a small like community thing. We didn't even think of it as a venture almost. We sold it at school. I sold it to a student work at school within the Indian community. And then when I got to college, I decided to solidify it a little more and make it more of a passion project and a venture that I really wanted to continue that could be sustainable.
Mhm. I love so many things that you mentioned today. You know, the culture we grew up here, how it just changes the perception of other countries and cultures,
Yeah.
and how you went there and experiencing it firsthand changed it completely. You know, preserving the dignity. I love that because I am coming from Kazakhstan. We also have lots of local artisans, and they're, like you said, they're very humble people, but they're proud of their work and their craft. And if you're going there as a guest, they don't think about making money from you because you're a guest. You're supposed to get free stuff.
Mhm.
And I experienced that a lot because I worked for international companies even back home, and we would have people just touring and coming in and seeing the country. And when you're there with them, you see this very, very poor villages, and people from the villages would want to give the guest a gift, and it could be their last piece of craft, or a musical instrument that's been passed on from generation to generation in that family. But there is such culture where they honor the guests so much that they want to give that thing for free,
Yeah,
and they would
no,
never want to make a profit. And that's why I love that there are a generation now growing up abroad that can actually connect the two, and do that, kind of almost complete the circle of giving, like you're saying, one gives,
exactly.
another one receives, and gives back something else. And um, uh, and because we're entrepreneurs, we're supposed to be making money and show others how to do that as well, so that it is more sustainable for the future, and the art form doesn't die, and it continues because there's so much demand, and they keep producing it. So and like you said, because it's a circle of giving, you're not just buying it to help Indian village. You're actually buying it because it is a rare form of art as well. So can you also show us how it looks like,
Yeah.
and how it's connected to nature? I love that part as well.
Yeah, so this one is, if you can see a red, it's a little gloomy here, so the lighting's not great, but it's a red bracelet. And as you can see, there's lines. This is not, there's one with like flowers, but I like to think of this almost like there's like some kind of animals that leave this kind of like footprint almost with, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's like a deer almost. They leave like two lines in the grass. So I like to think of it like almost like a deer footprint, this one. Um, and as you can see, it's very shiny and it's made out of all vegetable dyes and this is handcrafted, which is really amazing because it has such bright colors and it's really vibrant, which is one of the things I really love about this.
Mm-hmm.
And even the lacquer itself is made out of like a tree resin. So it's just it was when I was watching them create it, they did it with such ease and they did it so beautifully. It was just it was really like whoa. And going back to your point about like the artisans in your country as well, I think the way that people look at it is like I'm honoring the artisans by buying their craft and being there. But really, the way people should look at it is um, it's an honor for us to see them at work and it's an honor for us to have such access to a craft like that. And I think that's really the foundation of what built circle of giving.
Yeah, and I think as a student of marketing, and you would agree with me that it's all about the marketing and the branding.
Oh yeah.
Like, imagine if you went into one of the designers' factory to see how a Louis Vuitton bag is being made, right? It would be an honor for you. That's how at least people would perceive it. So when you're going into an artisan's workshop and you're experiencing how their craft is being made, that's an honor for you as well. And it's great that you picked up such you know an art form that can be translated and be in demand here in the US still, because what right now is happening is, organic dyes are very important.
Mhm.
Sustainable products are very important, and things that wouldn't generally um, be synthetic and chemical induced, because they usually have some bad effects on your skin, and can be dangerous for kids to play with. So uh, what you're bringing right now is very on trend, is organic, is all naturally made from wood. So this is like a really great entrepreneurial opportunity, and I'm really glad that you started it so early. And this is such an inspiration for our audience, especially the parents who want to see, like, oh, where my kids could get an inspiration, and what can kids generally do, because they have a bit of a thing where, like, the mindset that you need first some kind of education, knowledge, etc.
Mhm.
But here your parents actually did something incredible by exposing you to different world, and you figuring out what you would like to take from it and what would be the use for yourself. So I think it's just an incredible experience. And now that you are a student and living a college life, you brought this to a next level. So can you please share your experience doing it, and what were the major lessons learned? How did you build your team? How did you come to this point where Circle of Giving is a venture where you have followers, you have clients, and
Yeah, of
the
course.
progress that you made?
Yeah, of course, I can talk about it. So it's been quite a journey. So how it's sort of changed from back in high school and even the beginning of college is I sort of branded because it's so connected to nature and because the colors are so vibrant and bright. I believe that in a way that these bracelets and knickknacks can help a person be more mindful or and help them with their journey to find peace and become more a little more with that mindfulness idea. And also there's always just like, especially in this country, there's this trend, if there's something, I don't want to say trend, maybe there's this idea, a concept that if something's from nature and created in nature, it automatically connects you and grounds you a little more. And that's sort of the idea with Circle of Giving. So what we're trying to do is we're not only trying to sell it to people, or like business to customer, but we're also trying to host workshops as well. So these workshops, basically the format would go, we would talk about the Chanpark artisans, their process, their history. There'd be a small little like stretching break, small little like breather, and then there'd be an interactive at how the art can benefit them as well, and how it can help them with their journey to peace and mindfulness as well. So the bracelets are more along in the way I'm sort of branding this, and the way I really want this to have an impact is the bracelets would be more along the lines of that idea of introspection and really thinking and really looking at the colors and the patterns. And we'd have pictures of them in very naturesque spots, and it'd be like a little bright ring almost. It'll look like that in the middle of maybe greenery, of flowers. And people would be able to express what they're feeling, express what this reminds them of, craft a story around it, or just a basic feeling, because there's a lot of research with color psychology. There's a lot of research with the textures of the bracelets itself. Since it is handcrafted, you can really feel those grooves, and just kind of like, I know a lot of people who like play with their bracelets and like especially if you're nervous, and feeling those grooves again can sort of, it's very therapeutic. So having those workshops are really important to me, and having that impact on people as well. I like to call it a double demand. A double impact, I should say, on the demand side and the supply side. So that's sort of the idea that we're going for. And then the knickknacks consist of keychains, pencil holders, and we're going to later on introduce a stacker if these two work out. Is all along the lines of playfulness. A lot of times adults forget to play, and that's just, whether it's like crafting a story or just like fiddling and playing with things. And that in itself can be very therapeutic and help people calm down just by playing. So there's going to be two different aspects that are kind of different, which is introspection, which is self-reflection, thinking back to your memories, your moments, where you are and how you're feeling. And then there's that playfulness, which is like focusing on something and really enjoying it and being in the present. So that's where we're sort of driving. And we are currently working with an organization called Little Friends for Peace. We're actually having our first workshop April 17th. So this is a very, very new concept. So
I'm glad that you brought it to the podcast.
It's perfect timing. It's very perfect timing because that's like next weekend. So super excited about that. I know you mentioned some of the major milestones. I think one of the major milestones for me, and is the market research. I don't think I understand how much market research I still need to do and I needed to do. All through last year before the pandemic, I just interviewed local artisanal shops in DC who sold wooden crafts or something similar, just sort of asking questions, interviewing them, trying to gauge the landscape. And that's where I sort of, not also when I was little, when I was a teenager, but also during the market research is when I really, really began to see more of that pity component associated with Black or brown artisans. And that's where I really sort of kind of really created that sturdy foundation that circle of giving will not be like this idea. And there were many challenges along the way, and there still are in terms of, and I think one of the major challenges is actually something you brought up, which is team members. I had two friends who, since it's a very early stage venture and we're not profitable yet, my friends were helping and volunteering their time because they were really interested in this. But again, they don't want to continue this long term, which is understandable because they don't have as much of a connection with this as I do. So their help has been super, super valuable, but they're not going to be here for the long term. So I think it's either finding people who are going to be here for the long term and also understand that and have that same passion for Chanapatna that I do. And that's a very niche amount of people. So it's been very hard. But ultimately, if I do end up not finding anybody in the future, if I really do need that extra support, I'll probably have contracts for people. I can hire people based on contracts to work for a short amount of time for their expertise.
Right. You can, there are many ways you can find partners for a short period of time and do projects together that would benefit both. Or you can do consultancy, like people come in and they do some work and then they leave. And obviously it's very difficult in entrepreneurial life is difficult in general because most of the times you'll be doing it alone. It's your idea, it's your passion. So, but I'm actually very curious as well about the long-term vision for your career, for yourself, and how Circle of Giving fits in there.
Yeah, so before I talk a little bit about that, I should preface like my work experience, what I've had so far, has helped me so much with Circle of Giving as well. I think a lot of people view having their own venture and working somewhere else as mutually exclusive, and they won't really correlate or help each other. But for my case, I didn't find that. I found the things that I learned from my internships really, really helped me understand how to organize Circle of Giving more, how to just in general make it work. So that being said, I do want to continue Circle of Giving in the future. And I do want it to be alongside a job. And it's not happened yet, but based on just juggling school, extracurriculars, internships, and Circle of Giving, I don't think it'll be too hard to juggle like a full-time job and having a passion project, because at least it'll be like the job itself would be a little more clear cut in terms of timings, like knowing the exact schedule versus like every semester having either extracurriculars change, internships change, or school changing. So I'm not too worried about that, but I do, again, for my career, I want to work in something along the lines of community development, international development, particularly using my international business expertise, and trying to help with the business side of things. And what I've noticed in general with a lot of campaigns internationally is that marketing is really essential, especially if you're working with community development. If you're coming from a country, especially like America, a lot of regions, especially in emerging markets, don't necessarily trust companies coming from the United States. So marketing would be essential for that community development. And those experiences very much align with Circle of Giving in terms of what I can learn and what I can bring. So it'll be really interesting to see what I can learn from those experiences and what I can bring to Circle of Giving, and vice versa, what I've learned from Circle of Giving that I can bring to the table there as well.
Yes, I think you really nailed it with the whole circle thing, because one thing leads to another and it gives back to the other and it feeds the other. So, like, I always say to my students at the teen business school is that whatever you're doing right now, if it is not profitable and you're not the next billionaire, it's still going to help you land a really, really good job in the
Yes.
future. So you have no worries about wasting time for sure, because you're learning skills, you're learning real life market information, how to get that information. And these are all very valuable skills that you're going to use and benefit from in the future anyways.
Yeah.
And it is great that you see that and you're using that to feed the both your passion project and also your internships, and this is just great. And I think it will really help to grow Circle of Giving into maybe something even bigger, geographically and in terms
Yeah.
of art form as well. So like, if you thought about it, what were your thoughts, like the expansion kind of scenario?
Honestly, I haven't even thought that far in terms of expansion, because I've just been so focused on the Chanpark artisans, because I have that cultural and personal connection. If I do expand, I would still want that connection as well. So it'll be hard to find that in other areas. Just because it'll still look like someone who's coming from abroad there's going to be that savior complex that's associated. And I really, really don't want that. And with Channapatna, because I have that personal and cultural connection, it's less of that savior complex and really understanding and bringing awareness of the culture, and my experiences as well with the culture to people who I sell it to and who I do workshops with. So, and
so
a lot
you
of
feel like you're a representative of that part of the world, and therefore you have the right to be the ambassador and bring in that culture here,
to a certain extent, I can't
like
say
versus
completely.
if you went to somewhere Latin America and you started buying some local arts from there and bringing it here.
Yeah, exactly. To a certain extent, I can't claim I'm a representative just because I've grown up here,
Right.
and
But you have roots, so
I have roots.
it does help
Exactly,
to
it's perfect.
connect. Yeah.
It really does. Yeah, and another thing that is really interesting that I've noticed is with a lot of startups, scaling is important, and it is very important. But I've noticed that people have put a huge amount of emphasis on scaling. But the thing with Circle of Giving is, if I end up scaling and I end up like bringing a lot more craft, it loses its value in a sense if I like flood the market with Circle of Giving, and I still want it to have that value as well. So for me, scaling it is not as important as bringing awareness about it. I know a friend told me once, if you can just help one person or enlighten one person, you're good. You've done a good job too.
Yeah, that's great. I love that you didn't want to say the job is done, because
Yeah,
it's never done, right?
it's
You're
never
always
done. It's never
like
done.
looking for things to improve. And so for Circle of Giving, because it's such a niche and you've already worked with a lot of clients, can you describe your typical client, like your target?
Yeah, of course. So mainly, like we've been noticing that, especially the clients have been either like It's mainly been people who go to GW because, again, it's very small. We're sort of testing markets. So maybe like the younger generation who is more sustainable and conscious minded. But we've also seen on the flip side, the older generation, particularly women, buy this who are of South Asian descent as well. So there's these two markets. And again, we still need to discover more. And that's sort of where also with Little Friends for Peace, which is a really cool avenue to do workshops too, because they're also sustainably minded customers and clients as well, but they're not university students. They're more about really discovering that journey of peace and mindfulness as well. So there's many different avenues, but the two ones that I've noticed the best are like college students and the older generations who are South Asian descent, who are living in this country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's a great thing that you figured out a way for this to not only be just a decoration or a souvenir, but actually have a function
Yeah.
of grounding you and giving peace and connection to nature. And that's universal. Like anybody could relate to that, especially in this stress induced times. A lot of people are going back to that. So, speaking of distribution, right now, if I were to want to buy, where do I go and buy it, or what do I need to do?
From Circle of Giving. So currently, the website is still work in progress. We just created a Pinterest and we have an Instagram that's fully functioning. So what we're trying to do is, and this is sort of tying back to something that I've noticed in India, when you go dress shopping or jewelry shopping, the actual like person who's helping you, the employee, will like sit down with you and show you a whole array and walk you through what's the best. And sometimes they are not afraid to show you their opinions and be like, no, this will look really good on you. And it's honestly the best way to find the perfect thing for you, because there's some things that you just don't notice will look good, but they're like, no, you have to try this to look amazing, and it ends up looking amazing. So taking that sort of cultural aspect too, we're trying to do consultations and free consultations for people to find their perfect knickknack and perfect bracelet based on the color, the texture, and based on what they want to feel and what they want to get from it. So the consultations are found in a link on our Instagram bio, a link tree. They're free. So we can show them bracelets and things like that. And if people are unsure or if they definitely want to buy, they can make that decision without worrying about an extra added cost. So it's a little more taking the time and getting to know the client as well. And in terms of distribution, are you also talking about getting the Chanapatna craft to the United States as well and the distribution channels there, or just selling it?
I'm mostly thinking that, I'm an entrepreneur, and also I have a project management background, which makes me very efficiency focused. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking, if you were to have it in certain stores, it will save you time on those consultations. um, Therefore, you could have more sales, better impact. But obviously, if you're going the workshop route and the the connection route, it might not work, but definitely it will give you more sales. So in that sense, have you thought about looking for some kind of partners that would, retail shops or places that would feature your products and
Yeah, that's
you
a good
can.
point. So that's actually interesting. So we're currently, and I still have to do a lot more market research on this, but looking at yoga studios. So
Yeah,
what I plan on
that's
doing is
perfect.
we do like a workshop, and then if people, then they can see if the client's really interested, they can see the impact. And then if they are interested, they can eventually put it on their shelves seasonally or for a certain amount of time to sell. So that's sort of like the retail aspect. Again, it's much more strict based on what I know and what I've done market research for. It's a lot, even though it's seasonal, it's a lot more difficult. And especially with boutique stores, it focuses on a higher clientele, like a higher income clientele market, which is not really where I want to target as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I do end up selling it, like if it's because based on my target markets in an area that's not boutique, I'll have to it'll be very, very, very stressful in terms of getting everything there on time. It can't be as seasonal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like for example, I'm thinking like Walmart. If it's sold to a Walmart, like the turnover is just, it's very high and they'd need a lot more just based on the demand. Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, of
the
course.
shop,
The
so
volumes are incredible.
volumes,
You
that's the word
wouldn't
I'm
want to
looking
be
for.
in Walmart.
Yeah, like so the
That's for sure.
volumes
You
would be,
wouldn't be able to keep up.
yeah, and also it would lose that value. Again, talking about that value of the art as well. People would just end up buying it. They wouldn't really understand what's behind it. They wouldn't be aware of the Chanpark artisans. They'd just be like, oh, like artisans, we're helping artisans. So it's all kind of tying back to that idea of educating and bringing awareness about the Chanpark artisans and how the culture and then how it can help them.
Mm-hmm.
Also, real quick, I know you talked about the workshops, but what's interesting too is the workshops and giving those workshops actually in itself, if we're doing it to nonprofits, our distribution channel in itself. Granted, we don't do it in underserved communities because that would be unethical, in my perspective. So what we found, and we did a presentation, we didn't even do a full workshop, is that out of 11 people, 2 people wanted to actually bought something and they showed interest. So that sort of shows me that there's definitely an avenue there as well. A distribution, these can be used as a distribution channel as well.
Yeah. And I love that when you just showed me the bracelet, my immediate association about it was Wonder Woman. Some
Really,
kind of a bracelet that gives you superpowers. And
I
and that
love
is
that.
because I'm all about women empowerment and things like that. So, everyone sees their own stuff. And obviously for you, that would be great, like girl leadership, women leadership, and entrepreneurship. So I think this is all really great, and you can explore these avenues based on the job to be done. And for jewelry, let me tell you, is a huge array of the job to be done. People
Oh
wear
yeah.
jewelry for many, many different reasons,
Hmm.
and you are covering the reasons of finding peace and connecting to nature
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
mindfulness. And you can add some other things like feeling empowered, feeling culturally more aware. That's another thing I think people do. And when you were mentioning women of South Asian descent, is probably a different one where they just want to feel their identity,
Yeah.
being marked, and show that off. And there's so many different reasons, and if you can really like pin down the ones that make most sense, I think this venture is going to go really, really a long way. And like you said, Walmart obviously is too much, but whenever you tweak something on the demand side, you'll have to work on the supply side as well. And obviously, when you're had experience in corporate world and the operations, there could be a future where you go back there and you are able to scale the production much bigger in a way that it can be sold in Walmart and other places like that. And there is nothing bad about it because there still be even more awareness. Like if
Mhm.
there is an ad campaign featuring the village and the villagers, the artisans, their pictures and things like that, right in Walmart, I think that would be really incredible.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wish all these big things for you in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, of
And
course.
I'm really excited about this interview. Uh, are there any other things that you would like to share as to your mindset, you how you deal with challenges when things are not going your way?
I think the most important thing, and it's nice because we're at a smaller stage right now, and we're still, again, I have to emphasize this, doing a lot of market research about who, like really solidifying our target markets, because that's super important. I think it's really, really important to not get stuck on a specific mindset and get focused on a specific market and rather pivot. And I just remember, like, my beginning idea was to sell it to nonprofits for fundraising. And I was really, really stuck on this idea, but we always kept getting no's. And I was just like, why are we getting no? Why are we getting no's? Why are we getting no's? But because I was able to let go of that mindset, I realized that the workshop idea is an avenue instead, because it's also giving something to the nonprofits to work with, so that their what is the word, clients, their base, the customer base is also doing something out of this too. And it sort of aligns up with what we're saying before, like about finding peace and mindfulness with these bracelets and knickknacks and the art in general as well. So it's always just about pivoting and not being too stuck on an idea. And I know it's super hard because, your venture is like your baby. You want to make sure you want it to go a certain way. You want everything to be right. But that's just not how it is. And who knows, I might end up pivoting to a certain direction later on just based on the target markets. And it'll be painful, but at the end, it'll be really rewarding. So that's just like the biggest thing I've learned from this whole experience.
Yeah, and I think that's very wise, and it shows that you started this journey very early.
Yeah.
Because usually this mindset comes to people when they've been in business for more than 10 years or so, from the experience. And I can see that you're also speaking from the experience because you started it in a school when you're a teenager, and then you had to change it during student years, and you're still changing the vision sometimes to make sure you get the overall result that you're looking for. And the means can be very different depending on the situation. And it's very important. And pivoting is definitely has been such a buzzword in 2020. And a lot of businesses who actually survived and they're still in 2021 are the ones who pivoted and they changed their whole business model. Some of them even changed products completely
Yeah.
based on what is happening. So I think it is just great and amazing that you have this great understanding already, even before your graduation. This is just really awesome. And I'm really impressed.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. That means so much because I know you have a lot of experience with this as well. And just hearing the confidence in your voice and just with what you're saying just gives me a lot of confidence as well. And even the advice that you've given, really, really, I really appreciate it. Anything is welcome. Is my motto.
Great. I really love your vibe and the the way you're seeing things. I think it's really helpful, and that is the key to success. So thank you so much for inspiring more of my listeners to send their kids to study business early on, and let them experiment more, and also just sharing your journey and sharing this incredible form of art that I hope will only thrive in the future. And also because it's thanks to two little girls who went to India and discovered, and they decided to be not indifferent about it. They decided to be active and do something.
Yeah.
And I always love inviting people into making a difference. Where you see you care, do something.
Yeah.
Because talking about it is one level of awareness, but actually putting years of your life and work into it, that is commitment. And we all need that. Thank you so much, Anvita.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Anar, for having me.